These are some Dinar Guru updates, starting off with Frank 26 Firefly. CBI is on the news today warning people not to deal with unlicensed companies. Frank says if you're not dealing with unlicensed businesses, then those companies are going to go out of business. Fines are going to drive them out of business. There's no more problems with banks that are using the American dollars in Iraq. They are being eradicated. Militiaman article, quote, there are no sanctions imposed on Iraq by the U.S. Treasury, but sometimes there is a tightening of standards. They say it twice today in different articles that there are no sanctions imposed on Iraq. If that's the case and the U.S. Treasury gives the green light, then wow, we really have nothing holding us back. Pimpy says, as I watch the markets and read more and more about what's going on in Iraq, it's starting to really look inevitable that Iraq has to do something with the exchange rate. This gap between the parallel market and the fixed market is starting to really get out of control. We know al-Sudani made an announcement that he was going to take some steps to close this gap. Pimpy goes on to say now al-Sudani is coming over here to the White House to speak to Biden. I'm curious to see if the Biden administration is going to do anything to help Iraq in their situation. He could help flood their country with US dollars. The dollar would lose value and Iraqi dinar would gain value. Or they could just turn around and increase the exchange rate. Mark Z via PDK says, I have not heard from Iraqi sources in the sandbox yet today. I know they had high anticipation for the first comment. I think it will happen in January. Mark Z says, I feel it will be much sooner, so much happening now and all at one time. Right, Sampson article, quote, the Ministry of Oil confirms that the government is continuing to pass the oil and gas law. Walking stick question, seems to me the United States Treasury wants a new exchange rate for the dinar. Do you think they want the exchange rate not so much to benefit Iraq, but for all Iraqi dinars that we have in our federal reserves? Walking stick says yes, and the new exchange rate they agreed upon through the RV they gave it to the U.S. Treasury when they went over there last week. That's why they're all excited. They know it's about to happen. Our feds are pushing for its release to happen now because they got what they wanted. Bruce via Wiser Now says, I would say, based on what we're hearing, the fact that the intel is sort of drying up a little bit, good and bad sign. It's a good sign for us in that it shows how close everything is. It shows how the proximity is ready to go. Caparoni says, despite efforts from the CBI to reduce the spread of the market street rate in Iraq, it still remains almost 18% higher than the official rate from the CBI at 1310. Not good. Frank 26 article, quote, new statement from oil on the draft oil and gas law. Frank says, remember, in my opinion, the nanosecond you see the HCL, seconds later you will see the exchange rate of the IQD. Right, Mark Z via PDK says, I finally got some chatter from Iraqi contacts today. They did say things went very well over the weekend, WTO meetings, and they expect an announcement in the coming days. I got this from a number of sources, both internationally and domestic. Militiaman says if they do, in fact, get the oil and gas law done, they're going to need an evaluation for that. They're going to need to know what to pay the wealth of the citizens a fair distribution. All right, Mark Z via PDK comment, I heard Iraq is applying to the WTO today. Mark Z says presumably meeting over the next 3 days. Mark Z says they have already applied and they already been approved for ascension, but it hasn't happened yet. So these 3 days of meetings are very important. Question, don't they have to change the rate before Iraqi joins the WTO? Mark Z says that's what everyone says. This is assumed by almost everybody that Iraq will need to change their rate before they join the World Trade Organization.